Thank you. It's just helpful to have in case I ever
Totally.
venture to do this on my own.
Sure. So, and if depending how successful this goes, we may just end this and then I'll record it once I'm actually kind of in the groove or something. But I think at a high level, we should be able to solve this. So, just to take a step back, the goal of this is to basically do a find and replace in a more efficient manner, as opposed to manually going through all the links and selecting them and replacing them with the corresponding new destination link. Is that your expectation?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, just again, a small amount of background of initially chatting with you, Monica. I'm obviously talking to whoever's going to be watching this, I guess, which is kind of weird, but it is what it is. So basically what came to mind almost instantly when you initially shared this, I think in Slack, was basically we can use regular expressions, which is basically it's very cryptic, which is the lame part to learn it, but it's really powerful, obviously. And it's basically a way in all kinds of different languages is to use this kind of meta language. It's called regular expressions. And all it specializes in is finding patterns. So this regular expression language basically allows you to create essentially a pattern that you want to find within a huge amount of text or a small amount of text. That's why it's powerful too, right? Is it can iterate over tons of files. It can be used over your entire operating system in some cases. So for example, a really good use case would be, say you have this one might connect. So say for example, you have a digital camera and you store the folder on your computer or something. People might not do this anymore, but this is an example. Maybe everyone uses the cloud now. But you could technically do this on the cloud too. Like it could do the same thing. You could basically say every single image that starts with img underscore, there's these common patterns that file names just get. You could replace that and also automatically kind of do a batch renaming where you could say, remove the image dash underscore and just call it 1 and then 2 and 3 and 4. So you'd replace every single one, which again might not be a big deal if you only had 10 images, but if you had hundreds or thousands or that's basically where the power is.
Okay.
So what we'll do here is I don't know if I could have prepped a little bit better, to be honest, but we can give it a whirl. So basically what we'll try to do is, and this might be, what is it called? Regexer. Yeah, sweet. So this is a website, and there are other ones like this that allow you to kind of in real time test this. So it's a lot quicker, which, as you might expect, when you get quick feedback, that's where the wins are. So So up here we have what's known as the regular expression. Excuse me. And down here we just have some body of text.
Okay.
So and this is actually what I've done on the static site editor, in fact, is I would take the, let's just find yeah, we actually have the right file. So this is all in a single file, correct? All these links?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So that's just an interesting bonus, to be honest. So we can at least focus our efforts here. Naturally, you could expect if your regular expression wasn't good enough or it wasn't tight enough, you could and you ran it over a bunch of directories and not just one file. You could obviously, with great power comes great responsibility, right? You could actually do this find and replace on more than you'd expect. So that's something you got to be kind of careful about. But since this is in one file, that's actually even better. So what I'm going to do, and if you have any questions, feel free to jump in anytime.
Okay. Yeah, that's creepy to be able to like mess everything up. I think that's what strays me away from most of this stuff.
Yeah, a good sandbox, and that's exactly why as developers we have developer sandbox, right? Like you do it locally so you can kind of mess around and iterate towards a solution, basically. So what I'm gonna do right now is
Okay.
just copy these file contents. You wouldn't want to do this if there was sensitive information here on a public site like this. It's just something to be aware of.
Okay.
This is just a public set of like, for example, if you had passwords here, this site might actually record what people look at or like what people paste in here just so it can learn. Does that if that makes sense? But we don't have to worry about it. That's just like a small thing. So we can see right now.
Quick question, sorry, not to interrupt you, but quick question. So so the use case for this definitely is like getting them replaced from this page, but it's also like looking through the handbook to see like where are those old links linked, if that makes sense, like where are they hyperlinked, and then replacing them with that. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I didn't know if I was like reminding myself as I was looking through it.
Wait, so let me confirm what you just said. So are you saying we're replacing all these links in just this file with the corresponding replacing link over here, but you also want to make sure that any of these links on the left side in the current anchored link that are referenced anywhere in the handbook also want to be replaced?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and sorry if I wasn't clear
Okay.
on that. Yes, so that's the main use case really, is like, because
That makes sense.
Most of those links on that handbook page are actually going away. Like a lot of that copy is just there right now as a band-aid, because there wasn't like any kind of redirect or find replace. And so the main thing is like, yes, once all of these links are replaced everywhere with the new link where it should be, then then we can just go ahead and delete all that copy on the homepage now that has like most of those links, if that makes sense. Sure. And the reason we did that is because I know we talked about it. We couldn't redirect an anchored link. Was kind of the
I do
issue.
remember that actually, yeah.
So I don't know if that probably just made it a million times more complicated. I apologize.
No, it didn't. It's just going to take a little bit more time. Basically, to what I just said a few minutes ago, like great power comes great responsibility. We would just want to. I'm going to need a little bit more time just to, be sure. Is basically.
Okay.
So we can still finish this recording, no problem. We still have 20 minutes, and I can at least convey the general idea about it, and then you could just imagine. Now we do this instead of all that's going to change. I'd do this locally and not in this little tool.
Got it.
Because I would have to iterate all the files, right? So basically, one of the other bonuses about computers, right, is it can just iterate through the directories, and then for each directory, if there's a particular file that has a .md markdown extension, we could only target those, and we could run the same regular expression over all the files. So that's what I'll basically end up doing. But we can just focus on this one for now.
Okay.
So as you can see, it's already matching some things. So basically and again, this is where it's really cryptic, and this took me a long time to like, every time I'd dabble in it, and then it'd be a pain in the butt, and then it's like, but it's powerful, I'm gonna dabble in it, but it's so cryptic. So it's like, it's a hard thing to get past. And there might even be, all right, I'll just stay there. Yeah, basically it's kind of cryptic, but again, it's really powerful. So what it's doing right here is, and I don't expect you or anyone else to remember this, because again, it does take time, but I can share a link with you that basically defines what all these patterns are. And then you can kind of, like, if you wanted for yourself to like play with it, to experiment, that would be, again, you could use this tool in combo with what the actual rules are. And you could probably just type regular expression documentation, and I'm sure there's lots of various tutorials and sites and that kind of thing.
Got it.
The one caveat I'll say with that is the regular expressions syntax, like basically the special characters that it's going to represent, can sometimes be a little bit different depending on the language. So right now I'm doing it in JavaScript. You could also do PCRE apparently, which I'm not familiar with. And different programming languages sometimes have to use a little bit different characters, but the same concepts remain the same. And I believe that would only be because that language had already predetermined one of those characters to mean something special in its language.
Got it.
That makes sense. That's in an ideal world, it would be the same everywhere, but that's probably one reason why that might not happen.
Okay, that makes sense.
But anyway, what this is doing is saying, and you can see the little hover, which gives you, which is awesome too. So A to Z, any characters between A to Z, followed by a word character, matches any word character, and then one or more of the preceding token. So it's basically, I think it's finding a capital, it's finding the capital letter, the capital A through Z. So there's no capital in any of these. There's no capital here. Oh, we found a capital letter. So that's where at least this has potential. Then after that, we're looking for any word character, which is just /W. Again, this is very cryptic, but that matches to any alphabetical character, I think numerical. Oh yeah, it says right here, alphanumeric and underscore. So you can see that in the hover. So basically each of these has like a little bit of some extra characters that you might consider. So since A, L, E, and S are all what's dubbed word characters, and we also added this one or more, which is what the plus is. Keep going is basically what this pattern is saying. So it keeps going, but then it runs into the parentheses, and that's not part of this pattern where we have this capital, then we say followed by some kind of word character, which again is alphanumeric or underscore. One or more times, and it happened 1, 2, 3, 4 times, but then it knows to automatically stop because it ran into a new character that we didn't say is what we want.
Got it.
And then these little parentheses say it's called the capturing group. And what this basically says is capture this for later because I'm going to use it later. If you didn't care about that and you were just going to like, typically what you do is pretty much what we're going to be doing is typically you want to find patterns and replace certain portions of that string with something else specific that you know you want to switch it with. So that's where caption groups are really helpful. So for example, we have this caption group of just the S. Maybe you wanted to say, so here's kind of a funny example that I think Facebook actually did a while ago for like Pirate Day or something. Is basically on your page, you could piratify it or something. And all it did was basically, you could almost do this without a regular expression probably, but yes, but basically it found every R, or maybe what it did, it probably found every word that ends with R. Now turn that R into 3 R's. So it's like, you know, piratey R, like that.
Got it.
So that's obviously not a very practical thing, but it's a kind of a funny little thing. But that's a interesting use case. So it captured that R, that lowercase r, and then just replaced it with whatever you wanted, whatever they wanted. In that case, because it was that funny pirate theme, they replaced it with multiple R's.
Nice. Okay.
So that's why we're getting these matches just from, again, all I did was paste in our handbook sales page source, and this was already there. They had already predefined this.
Got it.
So what we're going to do is, what do we got? We still got 15 minutes. So what we're going to do is we could basically say, we can copy this just as an example. And I'm going to have to, so this is where it gets a little, because this slash command is again, this is where the cryptic part comes in again. This is already a special character, so there's another pattern you have to add to escape it, which means I really mean this character. Don't use it as a special regular expression meaning, use it as the literal meaning I want.
Interesting.
Yeah, so again, this is really cryptic. And we have no matches. Let's just keep it simple for now. I'd have to refresh on this. So we have 15 matches with HTTPS, for example. And so these would all be kind of the beginning of absolute URLs, whereas I think in a lot of these cases, we might actually just have relative URLs. I don't know, like if it's just the anchor and not the preceding about.gitlab.com/sales. So that's where I was saying like it's going to take me a little bit more time to basically do this right. But but at a high level, that's basically what it's doing, is saying, what we're going to end up doing is saying, I'm going to create a regular expression where it has, so another thing you can do is in regular expressions, you can do optional. So it's like, it is there or it's not. So what I'm going to do is say, if it's HTTPS all the way through /sales, but it's optional. It might also just be followed by the $.
Okay.
And then after that, I'm going to have basically a list of, this is my expectation. This, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty confident this is going to work. It's basically going to say HTTPS all the way up to sales, but it's optional. It may not be there, and that's okay. As long as it's still followed by the $. And then it's followed by one of these literal values, which are going to be each of the actual links. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those, and they'll be comma separated. And then that'll be the end of the regular expression that I want to create. And then again, I'd make sure that's, you know, I'm getting the results I'm basically wanting in a tool like this before I really run it. And then when I have that in code, I can actually do a replace of all those instances, of these 6 instances, with just this value. So similar to the example I said before, where instead of us just finding the lowercase r at the end of a word and replacing it with 3 r's, we're now going to say, find all these examples of that I just mentioned, and then replace it with just this URL. That's basically what's gonna end up happening. And I haven't actually done this in VS Code, which is the tool I was initially gonna think of doing. I don't know if it's gonna have like string limits on this or not. But if it doesn't, then I'm just gonna have to do this on the command line or something. I'll have to figure out exactly how I'm gonna do it. But
so you're essentially you're like mass searching right through all of the handbook for any time these things are listed, and then you're saying, okay, now that you found them all, replace them all with this one thing.
Exactly. So I remember I had the note of create one MR. So I think I took this note a month ago, I guess. I think that was your preference. We probably want to break them up into smaller MRs just for the sake of review. Because as you can imagine, if that's something I got to think about a little bit, is we want these to be in smaller chunks so that you can easily review them. Because if you just do a mass find and replace, we're going to have a merge request that has potentially touched hundreds of files. And that's like extremely difficult to know if there was an error in some place or not.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And just, I mean, I don't know for sure, but my hunch is that I don't think that these are interlinked an insane amount. There might be a couple that are, but most of these, I mean, I definitely agree. The one MR thing was just like more of a note to like, you know, it doesn't have to be separated in any particular way. So whatever you think is like easiest on the organization side.
Cool. So I guess we can do this. We still have 9 minutes, so we can give this a whirl.
Okay.
Whoa. I'll just do this for now. So this is kind of, if I was a regular expression guru, this would go a lot faster. But this is kind of the idea. We'll try this again. I mean, I don't even know if this is important for you now, but
no, it's interesting.
Okay.
I'm always happy to learn.
So I think Colin might have a special character. So we have no matches. We saw earlier that if we remove this, we do get 15 matches. So let's just scroll until we get one just to see. So we have YouTube. So that's the thing. I think a lot of them are going to be relative, which again, you're familiar with that, right?
I am familiar, but I've always wondered why. Like, I'm familiar, I do it when I'm referencing the handbook, but what's the reason?
That's a good question, actually. So that's a really good question. I haven't thought about that in a long time. I would, if I were to guess, I would have to guess it was kind of originated out of a developer time kind of optimization or like usefulness? I would
Okay.
guess. That's actually a very good question.
Mhm.
So the absolute URL will always work, assuming the server actually has the requested file at that location. Then you're good to
Mhm.
go. So it might be weird. Then why would you ever not always have the absolute? And again, that's a great question. This answer could be wrong, but my guess is like so this is actually a good example. So for uh, in like we even have it, right? We actually have, I think we have review apps that are on GitLab.io
Mhm.
/ blah blah blah. If they were
Mhm.
all absolute, which actually happens in some cases, like if you were on, if I were to be running the handbook locally, which I do during development sometimes,
Mhm.
if the link, for example, this YouTube link, it would always point to that exact location. Whereas if you did the relative URL, it would be relative to this file currently where I'm being hosted. So if I'm on
Mhm.
GitLab.com, it would point to that file. But if I'm on GitLab.io in a review app, it would point to that file. And in that review app, that file could also be part of what I'm testing. It's something I changed. So that might be I
Got
don't
it.
know, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. It's a little hard to wrap my head around, but I get it. I get what you're saying.
It's basically kind of a small way to make it a little more abstract so that we have a little bit more flexibility. I think it would
Yep.
be kind of a way to think about it. But that's a really
Got
great
it.
question. I haven't thought about that in a long time. I remember when I started doing web development, like that was kind of a confusing thing as well. I just haven't thought about it in so long.
Yeah, it's just like when I started, like Mike Snow on my team, like he was my onboarding buddy. He was like, "Yeah, you just make the links relative," and I was like, "Sounds good," but I never really asked why. And every time now I do it, I'm like, "I wonder why I'm doing this."
Interesting.
So,
Well, it's worth
and not
maybe
everyone
worth
does it. Like I've
sure.
seen handbook pages. I've gone in and edited handbook pages where I see that the owner like doesn't do that. So that made me curious.
So this might be another example of doing a regular expression if it was important to, for example, always have relative or always have absolute. We
Hmm.
could do a regular expression. That'd be a little. This example actually would be a little iffy because there's obviously other URLs like YouTube, for example. So you'd have to
Hmm.
start matching all these URL possibilities while excluding YouTube, for example, or other ones. So that gets a little scary. But that could be a potential regular expression use case, basically, is to do a mass
Sure.
replacement of, we don't want to do absolute anymore. We know everywhere where we have HTTPS GitLab.com / blah, 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 and we want it just to always be relative, then you could remove just that first portion of the URL, for example, across
Got it.
all the files. So that's just another example, I guess.
Interesting. Okay.
But we have about 4 minutes. And yeah, like I said, I think I'm going to have to refresh on this. I didn't really prepare as well. I'm actually a little confused why. So that works. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look at it again. But basically, that is, like I said, conceptually was what's going to happen. I'm going to ensure that we have, so these are all sales. So for this page, maybe I'll do one MR for just this page or something. I'll have to look
Hmm.
into how, as you say, you feel like there's not going to be a lot of instances where the /sales is referenced from other files. I can do a quick test locally to kind of confirm or deny that. And if that's the case, that can inform how many MRs might be a good idea or not,
Yeah.
just so it's not a crazy burden during the review process.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, and like I said, whatever is easy. Like one is fine. If one per page, like is fine too. Like whatever makes the most sense. And
Cool.
of course, just let me know if for some reason it becomes unattainable or it's just like too much, and we can figure out something else. But
Sure.
I really appreciate you helping automate this a little bit, or at least make it more automated, because this would have
Sure.
been crazy to try to do
That's kind of, like I said, that's what
without
kind
it.
of stuck out. It seemed very, very possible. So
Cool.
I'll, Yeah, I probably, the 30th, is that right? Is that the due date?
Yeah, this was kind of, we're working in like in a couple sprints. We're not like married to that. So if it's
Okay.
not possible this week, don't worry about it. Just
Okay.
in the next like week or two would be nice. And then I'm gonna just go through, like I said, once it's done, then I can go through and delete all of that old content, and we can finally kind of finalize that new homepage format. So
Cool.
just let me know what's realistic. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely don't rush.
All I should be able to get, that's what I was just trying to get an idea, but I anticipate getting it to this week and probably tomorrow, to be honest. It should go,
Nice.
it should go quickly. Like I said, I just have to refresh a little bit. So basically, again, just regexer.com if you're curious to like maybe just explore other little patterns, because again, it's very useful to do this. And there might be other tools that make it even easier, so you don't have to learn the cryptic part. I'd imagine that would exist.
That's
but
true.
there's trade-offs obviously there, and that you might not get as granular as you might want or something. But
and quick question with like the 2 minutes we have left. So like, I see how this helps you like find things, right? So when you then go replace them, is that done in like a different language or method, or is that done in regular expression?
Exactly. So that's why the difference would be, I'm going to do this locally on my machine because I actually have the capacity to run over the files, right, and do a replace. So
Got it.
what I was just for sheer transparency of how I was going to try to do it was just, and I can share real quick. I think I shared this last time too. So if I did a find in folder over app, we'll pretend like this is the source handbook. Just pretend that's what this directory is. In here, I can do a find and replace. So right now I'm looking for, this is just from some work I was doing previously, this particular exact literal string. But I could obviously do, basically you can do a regular expression instead by clicking this button right here, use regular expression. And then it's basically doing exactly what I did over in the other area, but it allows me to replace it. So this is what I was planning to do, at least from a first test, just because it'd be really quick. Otherwise, I'm probably just gonna have to go in the command line and do this there. But I'd like to do it here if possible, just because it's easier.
Yeah. So the regex is the find, so it finds it across multiple files, to your point, right? And then you just use this and like a simple like copy paste, or like a paste with what you want to replace with.
Exactly. So yeah, it's basically the replace. Say we're refactoring in this thing called description template, and now it's like new template. Oh, it's obviously a terrible name, but you get the idea. And now it would say, it would replace this with that. And that's, again, kind of, yeah, anyway, code editors have different kind of tools like this to help you do this in a better way than this also. But this obviously has a great use when you want to replace certain unique patterns.
Nice.
So.
Cool. All righty. Well, awesome.
Yeah. So I will. So yeah, I guess we can kind of end the recording, I guess. But
yeah.
So I'll just end it, I guess.